Men. What are some deal breakers for a potential relationship, even if they're very attractive? Lack of respect for my boundaries. I learned this lesson the hard way once, and I've got no intention of letting it happen again. Tests and indirect behavior. If you want something, tell me. I'm not playing a game just to see if I'm worth your attention. You don't treat the things I care about or respect seriously. It shows me you won't even put in the effort to act like you care. The idea of, I don't have to bring anything to the table and you have to bring everything. If you're a leech, I'm not interested in wasting my time on you. If they breathe their politics too loudly, I'm fully open to someone who doesn't perfectly align with my idea of a worldview, but if they're super loud about it, that looks incredibly cringy and tactless. I don't care if it's for something I agree with or not. There's more to life than mindless tribalism. Also, when she becomes work, I'm out. I have enough on my plate. I want a partnership, not another job. I'll cook and clean for us, sure. We'll balance out our lives depending on our work schedule and if we have the effort and all that. I'm talking if she's sitting on her back and expects me to do everything. I'm done. Succeeding as a work-only fan? That's awesome. I wish I could make people happy like she's doing. My stand-up comedy's a joke and no one wants to see me get down. Influencer? Absolutely. You preach. I'm not a sub, but I'll definitely be taking notes. Into horses? I'm out. That's just financial risk waiting to happen. It's crazy how fast I've seen people lose life-changing levels of wealth or their health over horses. Our wants don't line up. We can't enjoy each other's company or every day is when it rains, it pours levels of misery, and nothing is ever good. The I don't bring anything to the table attitude is like going to a potluck and expecting everyone else to cook. You're just there to eat. Story 2. After 4 decades and dozens of failed relationships, this is easy. If she tries to change you into someone she wants instead of accepting you for who you are, your partner should inspire you to be a better version of yourself, not dress you up to be someone you're not. This also goes for setting rules on how you can eat, walk, dress, drive, who you can talk to, be friends with, etc. Any interrogation about your wages, earning, wealth, stocks, or material possessions. Being self-made, having money, and being financially stable are important, but passing your W-2 across a dinner table on first dates should never happen. If she even asks, show her the door. Communication. It's important. I don't care if it's text, call, smoke signals, or cododrums. Let's make sure we prioritize each other and stay connected. Communicating. Don't hole up and brood over something that bothers you. Let's take a hike and talk it out. Likewise for ghosting. If we're going back and forth and having a conversation over text, and you suddenly disappear for hours or days, major red flags. If you have to go and can't reply for a while, just drop a text saying so. If you come to the table empty-handed with just a list of what you want from me, instead of coming to the table with a list of your best qualities and attributes, that's how you're leaving the table. Empty-handed. BPD, bipolar, or significant history of eating disorders. I've had this trifecta more than once and even had this in a single person. It's not for me, and it's incompatible with my lifestyle, so they can move on. Hard pass. There's 4 important qualities of any successful relationship. They're the table legs that a stable relationship is built on. Number 1, presence. Number 2, balance. Number 3, honesty. And number 4, transparency. If you have those with a partner that shares your energy and space and time, you've won. Story 3. Probably low-hanging fruit, but it's definitely willful ignorance. I'm not talking about just being ignorant of things. Some people may not be the brightest color in the crayon box, but they can still be the pleasant, endearing kind of ignorant. Then there's the rest. Willful ignorance encompasses all the superstitious, the conspiracy theorists, the science deniers, you name it. Even things like astrology that seem harmless at first are off-putting to me because the seeds of willful ignorance are planted. You're willing to believe things with substandard or even outright ridiculous evidence because feeling good about something is more important to you than truth. If you deliberately ignore facts in favor of comforting falsehoods, then we are not compatible. This also includes people that are afraid to say, I don't know, if they don't know something. I respect the hell out of people who can honestly just admit they don't know something. Bonus points if not knowing the thing is a bit embarrassing and they still admit they don't know. If you can suffer embarrassment to preserve your integrity, then you're all right in my book. I learned to favor people like this from my grandfather. He taught me every way not to be as a person. He was indignant, hateful, judgmental, and always had to be right even in the face of overwhelming facts that showed he was flatly wrong. He passed away from a sickness because he drank all the conspiracy Kool-Aid and was completely convinced it was harmless. He was a hateful, condescending, two-faced schmuck that would pretend to care about you in person and then go online and show who he really was. He was a shining example of who I never want to be and also who I never want to be with. Story 4. I've developed a few. Like, for example, treating service workers like trash, especially since I've been those service workers, acting like a spoiled child and expecting others to accept her for it. Can't handle me at my worst, don't deserve me at my best. Or being an anti-theist. As a religious person, though I'm flexible, I won't put up with someone actively hostile to my faith, to name a few. I know I'm not exactly a catch, but I'd rather be single my entire life than put up with a woman who acts in such a manner. I don't think it's asking too much for me to want to date a woman who can act like an adult who isn't entitled. If she's from a religious family, like Baptist, best to just move on, unless you're of the same religious persuasion. I've been down that road a couple times and it never works out. Fundamentalist types can be very conflicted about dating a non-fundy, and it always leads to dysfunction. Plus, the family will be very critical and unaccepting of you because, you're destined for hell. My ex-girlfriend used to tell me it made her so sad that she and I wouldn't be together in the afterlife because she'd be in heaven, and despite being a good guy, I'd be in hell because I hadn't been born again and accepted Jesus Christ as my personal savior. That I'm intrinsically better than you and it makes me so sad. Attitude got old. Story 5. And things don't go both ways. No double standards here. Things need to be 50-50 or it's a deal breaker. Also, not treating waitstaff and retail workers like human beings. It's a wonderful test in character for someone. So, take your new date to lots of places with new retail workers and see how they react. Condescension and looking down at them as lower class because they're poor and serve the public also counts. Even if you excuse it with a warped logic, don't, especially if it feels wrong. Was in various retail jobs for years. You would not believe some of the crap that people try to get away with due to entitlement and the myth of the customer is always right BS. Intelligence. I hate explaining everything. Movie plots, historical relevance of current events, and vocabulary words. It can be fun to introduce people to a topic that they're unfamiliar with, but if you have to catch them up in every discussion or act like a thesaurus when talking because they don't understand you, myriad, plethora. A lot of many, lots, and abundance. Yikes. Relationships that last are rich in interactions and exchanges of affection, ideas and information, love, etc. If you're the only source of any of these, it's draining and you feel used. It's wonderful to be wanted. It's terrible to be needed. Story 6. I've got a couple. Number 1, not being over their ex. Had a relationship long ago where she'd only broken up with her partner 3 months before. Got the feeling she hadn't processed it all. Asked her about it. She said it was all fine. 6 months later, found out she was cheating on me with him. Just break up with me first. Number 2, one girl in her 30s who was on her phone a lot during the date. Though she wasn't keen, asked her. Oh no, I'm just Instagramming what we're saying. I went to the toilet and never came back. Number 3, people who can't hold a conversation. For instance, if they talk only about themselves or they don't ask open-ended questions, I'm gone. Number 4, the entitled mentality. I have no problem in paying for the first date or pay for both of us when going out. I can afford it, but I want it to be for my initiative. It kind of loses the whole point when it's a must, and now it's like I'm taking out my little sister to eat. Number 5, timeliness. If you can't be bothered to be on time for a date, I'm not interested in talking to you anymore. Obviously, if there's an external reason for it, I'm understanding. But making me wait around just means I'm losing interest, especially if you can't be bothered to even let me know. Number 6, someone who is ruled by social media, having to post daily and put up uninteresting photos of themselves looking pretty. If a woman needs the whole world to reassure them, then I have no chance on my own. That's game over for me. Number 7, if she has I have standards in her bio, I pass. It is in my experience that women with real standards do not announce that they have them. They simply go on the date and you'll know if you pass the standards if you receive a call the next day. It is in my experience that I have standards is code for I demand an expensive date and lifestyle regardless of my own finances or accomplishments, simply because I'm a woman. A real woman with standards will sit back and analyze you. She'll add everything up, like she's grading school papers in her head, and if now I cannot stress this part enough, if and only if you pass her standards, will you get a text back the next day? If you check everything off her list, You might even get lucky. Number 8. If she has way too much free time and seeks to fill it with only me. I don't know why, but it's happened a couple times where it became clear she doesn't do anything but go to work and then talk to me. No movies, TV shows, or books, no hobbies, no meeting friends. Just me. Don't get me wrong, I like to talk and want to spend time together, but even if I was the most interesting man in the world, I wouldn't be able to live life for the two of us. Number 9. Rude to service workers or retail workers. Consistent liars and expectation of things to be paid for. I don't know how to put it in words, but I also hate when someone uses their gender or horoscope to excuse their behavior or detract from the behavior of others. For e.g., as a man, I cook and clean for myself, so I don't need a woman to do so or expect it, but vice versa, if I don't want to do it one time, I hate someone who will just be like, men or horoscope sign, you never do anything. Story 7. Nothing turns me off faster than the sense that I'm being interviewed or evaluated as means. I have a very distinct memory of a conversation with a lady where it was clear she had a checklist. How old am I? How much do I make? Do I drink? Do I smoke? She wouldn't let me get a word in edgewise and ignored any of my questions. Eventually, I wished her luck in her interview. Separately, I knew a lady whose goals in life were entirely material. She wanted to live in a lakeside house with a sailboat and an airplane. She measures her life in financial terms. Now you might think this is some high-flying ladder-climbing corporate executive in the making. You would be incorrect. She works in the service industry and has no plans to ever stop. Can I afford these things? I can, but if I'm going to be glorified at the moment, nope. Story 8. Met this girl in college. Nice personality, smoking hot body. Invited her over to my dorm for some Netflix and chill and quickly noticed she had how to put it delicately, a severe BO problem. I'm talking rank, and when she took her shoes off, it was worse than some of the guys I used to play basketball with. Okay, not a deal breaker. Maybe she just had a long day and hadn't had a chance to take a shower. Happens to all of us. So we got together a few more times, and if anything, it got worse. So I tried dropping some subtle hints. She finally told me she was into something called natural hygiene and didn't bathe more than once every couple weeks or even use deodorant, soap, or shampoo. Nope. I was screaming yes, but my nose vetoed it. I was out. Story 9. I'll throw 2 on here that are related. The if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best behavior, idea, whatever. Cool. I don't deserve you, and that's fine with me. I see this as people writing a blank check for bad behavior. And related, inability to control themselves when mad. Don't get me wrong here, emotions are what they are. You can always control when you're mad or sad or whatever. The behavior I'm talking about is deciding every fight needs to be won, and it's okay to say stuff during a fight because you're mad. Bonus. This occurred to me while typing the first 2. People who don't work by themselves. None of us are perfect, we all have flaws, but the "this is just who I am" when used about toxic behavior is a no-go. Story 10. If said girl has a long history of failed relationships. If I'm going for something serious, I always try to know a bit of the said person's past. If she had a lot of casual relationships and still sees herself as a free spirit, that's a huge red flag. I genuinely do not buy the BS that someone suddenly changes from a lifestyle of casual relationships to wanting something serious with a snap of their fingers. Nothing against casual stuff, it's just that if I want something serious, I tend to filter for like-minded people. It's counterproductive to assume that you can change someone, and most likely, you'll end up wasting your time. Also, at my age, I try to filter out anyone that still has a college mindset. If I'm working full-time and have my daily time constraints, I don't have time to invest in someone that most likely doesn't understand what little time is left after a work week. Story 11. Honestly, her not having happy parents in a healthy relationship, I mean, she can have happy divorced parents if everyone's healthy and not toxic, of course. It's not a girl's fault if their mom is a narcissist witch and their dad left when they were 5, but goddamn, that stuff is way more often than not correlates to a woman's behavior in a relationship. I've dated too many women that I see mimicking the exact same behavior their mom uses with their dad or similar situations. A woman who was taught to be a good person by her parents is very different to one that learned cluster B personality tactics through osmosis. I'm old now, and I'm just done with starting relationships with any kind of red flags, to be honest. Bummer if that excludes totally fine women, but you have to play a numbers game with it. Story 12. Unfair rules. Like some boundaries and rule settings happen in a relationship. You want me to not interact with exes, especially if you have a history of being cheated on? But if you want to go through my phone every time I use it and I can't question why you have one-on-one dates with your recent ex every week, Then we're off immediately. Hypocrisy and unbalanced power dynamics do not fly in this house. Seeing how they handle arguments with someone they're dating or have dated. I had a huge crush on this girl in middle school to high school. She was one of the prettiest girls in school and totally out of my league. One day I'm walking down the hall to the bathroom when I notice she's putting up some sort of flyer and a bulletin board for something. As she was doing that, her boyfriend, or maybe ex-boyfriend, came stomping up to her all mad and just said, "Why are you telling everyone I got a small thing?" She just replied, "'Cause it's true." Then they kept fighting, but I just almost lost it by passing them. That whole incident immediately ended my 5-year-long crush I had on her. Lol. Also, I cannot do long distance. I need cuddles to survive. If you're going to snoop through my phone, at least buy me dinner first. But seriously, trust is key. Story 13. I notice in long-term successful relationships, there's a lot of forgiveness. I think being able to communicate and offer the same forgiveness that you'd expect if something happened to you is key. Obviously, there are limits. Too often, I think we build up these relationships to be these perfect things. The reality is that we have to make them work versus assuming this is the exact type of person or situation I will only accept. Actually dooms any relationship prior to even beginning. So I would say being self-realized, accountable, and ability to communicate will help position a relationship to succeed, or at least give it a fighting chance. Being able to share interests with one another is a two-way street. I'm pretty big into my fandoms, and even if you're not into them, at least being interested in how excited I am when I talk about them is enough for me. I haven't really experienced that with a partner until 2 years ago, my most recent ex. I mean, she went as far as binge-watching One Piece with me. I have to tell you that was probably the most important part of that relationship to me. Just being like, hey, I have this thing I really like, and it's really important to me. Before she watched it, she asked me what it was about. I didn't hold back. There was literally 45 minutes of me just nonstop talking. She was a real trooper. People don't always show you the ways you don't want to be treated. Sometimes they help you realize the ways that you do. I'm forever grateful for that. Honestly, looks don't matter so much as personality. Not saying they aren't a factor to a degree, but if someone acts like they're hot stuff and like I should give you everything just to be in your presence, then I'm going to not be in your presence because you aren't worth it. If you're willing to spend the time to talk to me and we get along, can converse about several subjects and share interests, then yeah, a relationship would be great. If we don't get along, no hard feelings. Go our separate ways and move on. Story 14. Constantly victimizes themselves, extremely defensive when you question them, and willing to make a whole show just to show how hurt they feel. The plate fell to the ground, broke, you can glue its pieces together and use it again, but it'll never be the same kind of drama. Extremely disrespectful if you don't change your views or opinions according to their own to the point that they're willing to blaspheme against what you believe in just to make a point. Sense of superiority. I've met more than a few women who believe that just because they're women, they deserve the whole wine and dined by men as it's our responsibility as men do. Look, I'm not cheap and will gladly be the one to pay if I ask you, but if all you have to offer in return is an awful attitude and a pretty face, I'm not interested. Work on your personality and get one before I date you, even if a supermodel would be envious. Lack of loyalty, lack of compassion, general stuff. But what I find is a major deal breaker and immediately turns me off is when she's just a girl wanting to be a stay-at-home mom. Now, nothing is wrong with this, and I hope I'm able to afford a lifestyle that could support me having my wife as an at-home mom, but I have an attraction to women who are educated and capable of being financially supportive. Like if there ever was a day when I wasn't able to work and we have kids, I would want to know my family is thrusted into poverty and my kids will be in a tough situation. I feel it is the responsibility of both parents to be educated and capable of earning an income. It's a better team system also if you wanted to work 5 years and then be an at-home parent for 5 years. Hypothetically, you could manage that. Not saying it would look good on resumes or in most careers, assuming in the next 10 to 15 years, a bunch of old stupid congressmen pass away, younger people who had a modern-day economics class and have to sit through several inflations will hopefully fix something. Also, maybe by making this post could spark a societal idea. Also, I find that women I am seeking who are emotionally, mentally mature only see the now and not the later are so unattractive. Like, I want to love you now, but also have you later in life. People who drink, smoke, or spend excessively. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 15. Dishonesty. Hit it off with a girl who just lied constantly. From big to small, she did it all. We weren't dating though, but still. Eventually, when real life hit me, like when my dad passed away, she didn't care. She wanted me to keep reacting to her drummed up BS. From her being hired to work for a cruise ship that magically didn't work out, or that American businesses don't call you if you got the job or not. They just tell you when you're there, which makes no sense. To Trump being basically God, to Lego making Billie Eilish and Doja Cat sets, which they would never do since neither of them are family friendly. To American Walmart selling pocket toys to her, then suing Walmart for messing up her tires and that she won without going to court. Or getting a lawyer, to lies on top of lies. She even got me all excited because she said she was going to come see me, then magically, the week before, it didn't work out and she said she couldn't quit a job she constantly complained about, even though she said she was loaded, and her family was loaded and lived in this place in Brooklyn. That was still for lease when I looked it up. Then, like 2 days after she was supposed to come, she quit her job, if it even existed at all. I stopped believing her after a while because she was toxic AF, but every time I tried to leave, she manipulated me into being the she's sweet and innocent. She said it was her only friend, yet argued with me constantly. Then she said she needed to take a break from her phone and proceeded to delete all of her accounts. All her stuff added onto my already brittle trust issues. Like, why lie? Why lie constantly about what's going on? She fed off my attention and then pieced out when it wasn't about her anymore. Story 16. There's a lot of deal breakers for me, I guess, but just to list some that I've been thinking about over the last couple of years are pretty big ones. For example, I'm only 32 years old and I'm newly single, but I don't want to bring any more life into this world. Whoever wants to be with me in the future needs to understand that being with me means that we will not be bringing any more life into this world. If they have children already, it's not a deal breaker. I just am choosing not to make more children myself, and I'm not okay with the idea of someone else, donor or otherwise, impregnating my partner. If whomever I build a relationship with in the future isn't okay with not having any more children, then they aren't going to be happy with being with me, so I don't waste their time. I'm also on the fence about ever getting married ever again. My impending divorce is pretty much tainting the idea of ever getting married again. It's not like I'm against marriage or anything. Marriage is beautiful. It's just not for me, I guess. I'm less firm in this stance, though. If I find the right woman and she's open about it from the beginning, but I still give her a chance, some convincing can be made to sway me. So whoever I'm with needs to understand that dating, maybe common law marriage, I guess, is as far as the relationship is going to go, unless they're very convincing. So sure, these are two things that a lot of women say they're okay with off the bat. My worry is that they'll think that they're okay with never having children again or never getting married, but then get wrapped up in the lovely, dovey nature of a relationship, and then change their minds and want more, and then resent me for my stance of those ideas. Plus, my general interest for a partner is someone close to my age, and I'm still pretty young, so finding a woman who doesn't want any more children and who doesn't want to get married is going to be a tough order. As I said before, I'm only 32. I already have 2 children. I'm going through a divorce. I've hurt my partners and they've hurt me. Now I'm looking out more for myself and my future. Story 17. Lack of trust and jealousy. You don't need my passwords. You don't need to dig through my phone. You don't need to know my location at all times. I'm a person and have a right to privacy, as do you. That does not mean I'm doing anything wrong. I understand that your last girlfriend slept with your dad, but you're not going to punish me for her behavior. If you can't trust me, we can't be together. If you're going to accuse me of cheating every time I have a conversation with a male friend or every time I like a post on Instagram, we can't be together. I'm an adult. I need to be with someone who can handle things like an adult, which means communicating your feelings, having discussions, and setting healthy boundaries. It does not mean accusing each other of crossing invisible lines. Story 18. If I was to get back into dating again, there's quite a few. Number 1, not being single. It should be a given, and yet it's too hard for so many women. Men too, but I'm a straight man and would only look at women if looking to date. Number 2, dishonesty. There are always lies in the beginning. I can tolerate small lies that would be expected during the time when a woman comes as her representative rather than herself. Big lies, not so much. For example, don't tell me you have no kids when you actually have 5 still living with you. I also have no patience for the expectation to come as my representative rather than myself, so I'm just putting my cards on the table from the beginning. Number 3, playing hard to get. I'm in my mid-30s and have no patience for this game. Do this and I'm walking. Number 4, you should just know. No, I won't just know what you want me to do. As a twin, I can confirm that not only does telepathy not exist, but Everyone has a different brain with their own thought process and priorities. Verbally articulate your thoughts like everyone else or get off, and do it yourself the way you want it. You're an adult. Number 5. Comparing me to her exes. It should be obvious that I'm not them, and if you're going to say they were mistreating, that fact should probably make you happy. Number 6. Making a big fuss about anything and not caring enough why I'm like the way I am. As a person with multiple health problems, it's very important to me that my other half understands me really well. It goes both ways, of course. Story 19. There are 3 things I look for in a date. Number 1. Did she tell the truth about her appearance? Number 2. Do we click on the date? Number 3. Does she trigger a flag in the date that is a no-go? I once went on a date with a girl that was 3 times my size. I'm not going to date her again, but I will enjoy my time with her on that date and be the perfect gentleman as best I can. I have my own opinions and morbid obesity, and I won't compromise them. She then asked what I'm into, and she was heavily into sports and such, yet I'm into home gaming, books, fantasy, and other general nerd things. She then said something else, which takes me to my next point. When I said I wasn't into sports, she said, "We'll fix that." Red flag alert much? I'm not broken. I don't need fixing. I'm stable, make a moderate income to support myself, have a job without worry of being fired, and I'm physically healthy. I told her I didn't drink or smoke or anything of that nature either. All up, terrible date. The biggest thing that put me off was telling me we'll fix that when I said I don't like something. Story 20. Pick-me's. Like, I'm not full-blown worshipping the ground women walk on as reparations-type feminist or anything, but objectively, they live a life with struggles men couldn't imagine. I'm of the mindset it goes both ways. Our struggles are completely foreign to them as well, since they don't live our lives, but I'd rather deal with our struggles from what I've heard. But when I'm talking to a girl and she starts saying stuff about how women live life in easy mode and women should be housewives and all this, it's so unattractive because, in my mind, it means she's either incredibly desperate or incredibly lazy. I don't want a child to have to financially support or something. I want an equal partner who carries equal responsibilities, both at home and financially. Like, I'm sorry, but cleaning the house is easier than working. I'm more than comfortable coming home from my 12-hour shifts now and cleaning up a little mess I make. I'm not going to completely shoulder someone else's financial obligations just so I don't have to do it. Also, girls who say subtle stuff like, "I wasn't interested at first, but he grew on me," or something like that. Like, yeah, personality is more important than looks, but looks still matter. If you're not physically attracted to me, I don't want you. My partner should find me hot as well as my personality. Like, little disses like, "His personality makes up for his looks," are so disrespectful to me. Story 21. Anything that feels at all like love bombing or moving too fast? I've dated a few women recently who are thinking way ahead even after one date. They must have dated some awful guys, because they treated me like I was amazing for simply having my life together and having manners. It is off-putting to feel like I'm being put on a pedestal by someone who doesn't know me that well. I used to be flattered by this. Now it's a red flag. It's not that I don't want someone to be interested or excited about me, but I think things like pressuring me about babies, making long lists of date ideas, or trying to make plans on 4 different nights within a week after the first date were legitimate reasons to be worried. I also had one date who seemed to get validation out of having me do things for her. It's hard to explain without going into detail, but what started out as seemingly innocent requests evolved into what felt like orders by the end of the night. It was subtle in public and ramped up when we got back to my place. It didn't feel right to be bossed around in my own home, especially not on a first date. Lastly, others have said this also, but competing with others. But my thing is competing with social media BS. I can't get a simple hello or a good morning, but I can see her whole morning routine online. They started dating before cell phones and loved how we were able to communicate on the phone or just by sitting and having a chat. But now they say, check out my IG or whatever to see what she has been up to. Sorry, but that's not for me. To be clear, I don't have social media. I would rather be one-on-one with a person. I would rather talk on the phone than text all day. A few texts here and there is okay, but not a whole conversation. Story 22. Why do women not have hobbies without making it their personality for 4 months, then immediately moving on to the next thing? Or not have hobbies at all or consider TV and music their hobby without knowing anything that's not the daytime trash or top 40? Point is, why are women generally so boorish? Like, Jesus Christ, I would like to be swooned too, or have the opportunity to be the aloof one playing hard to get. If I was a woman, I would actually take pride in being able to make the first move or pay for a date. What's a deal breaker? Making me part of your image without thinking of mine. Indifference to anything. History of your way through your problems. I'm lucky to be in a healthy relationship now. 10 years ago, I felt like women were trying to flip the traditional dating scheme, which was a good thing. But something happened where a date turned into an interview for an employer. I may not even be interested in myself, and the interviewer already had major OSHA violations. Story 23. Mommy issues. They're the exact opposite of daddy issues in the fact that there's no upside at all. Daddy issues pop up once or twice a year, maybe around the holidays where there's some kind of family gathering, and it's a bad day, but there's always crazy intimacy to follow. Mommy issues? None of that. Every week or every other week, there's a blowout at the end of the family fights where someone's moving to another hemisphere. These fights are black holes. You can't not get involved. You're going to be forced to take a side, and there's no winning side ever. Take mom's side because she's being reasonable? Well, now you're against your partner. Side with your partner? Well, now you hate her family, and this can never be resolved. Oh, and all of this means no intimacy for weeks. Run. Run fast. Oh, and on top of that, all the issues related to mommy issues are total BS first world problems. When it relates to legit misconduct, it's very rare that there are fights like this. They were either dealt with professionally previously, or just coming to a head and going to be dealt with professionally. All of the issues that are going to come up here are, she was mean to me on my birthday last year. Story 24. Makes the relationship about her needs and wants and not your mutual wants. Gives no space, can't afford to keep her around. Mean to others. Expects others to serve her instead of having perspective. Manipulative. Talks about others cruelly behind their back. Can't solve conflicts. Is secretly 1,000 stapled spiders wrapped in a human suit. Emotionally manipulates you just to watch you react to things. Creates drama. Tests. Record of unrepentant crimes. Heavy substance use. Makes me feel horrible about myself. Mean to animals and is rude to service people. Also lack of communication. She has to be able to communicate her needs and her feelings in a direct way. If anyone has read one of John Gottman's books or seen a video about relationships where they talk about master couples, those are couples who communicate the best in their studies. A woman has to communicate that way. For me to know that I can become something more than just casual. After I became aware of all the psychology behind relationships, I was single for a long time because I knew what type of woman I wanted. I found her now. And I feel very certain that my current girlfriend is the one I'm going to marry and have kids with. Story 25. There are plenty. Shallow, obnoxious, petty, complaining, etc. One big one for me that seems often overlooked is someone that isn't success-driven. I don't need you to be the CEO of your own company, but I've met many 30-year-olds who claim to be in school. In reality, they're living with their parents, working a retail job and taking one gen ed class at community college. You're not a student. You're just taking a college class. For Christ's sake, have a plan. With that said, I'd be okay with someone with an ordinary job, but there needs to be room for growth, and preferably in a career that affords a salary and benefits. I met my wife in college when she wanted to be a maxillofacial surgeon. Then that morphed into a pediatric cardiologist. She ended up being a molecular scientist and eventually quit that to be a PA at an NICU. She did a year at urgent care after graduating PA school until finally finding a position at an NICU, where she's totally rocking it. I'm just mentioning it to say plans can be fluid, but the drive to do something better is still there. Hell, that drive could even manifest itself to be, I'm comfortable where I currently am, so I'm working on making myself the best at what I currently do, as long as it's something more than menial tasks. Story 26. Lying and guy best friend. I have my own stuff going on. I'm happy, at peace, and thankfully, get to use my passport 3 to 4 times a year, which is nice and affords me lots of time to see the world. If I can't trust you or have to worry about some, oh, he's my best friend, we sleep in the same bed, he rubs my feet, etc., type of stuff, then I'm super cool. I value my peace above all and have chosen not to disturb that. These are rigid boundaries that I bend, nor negotiate for no one. I have little to no stress out here, so I ain't about to start with someone who moves the goalposts of truth or who has a side lurking and waiting for an argument before he's going off you again. Nope, just tell me from the jump, so I don't waste my time. I won't question it, or you, and wish you all the absolute best in life together. Just miss me with all that, lol. Especially if the dude had already had history and lied about it. I've walked away from a 3-year relationship based off of that lie once. The same day I found out. We've nothing to discuss. He can have you. Life's too short to be chasing and negotiating love. Super duper nope. Give me peace all day, baby. Story 27. Wanting both for me to provide for them, such as me being stronger and being the sole income earner, or such a disproportionate imbalance that I might as well be. Me being the stoic one. I pay for all of the dinners and dates that we do, me having to engage in flirting romance and intimacy all the time, but also wanting to be a feminist and independent woman who expects me to do the chores, be equal partners, having it be her body and her choice and generally doing whatever she pleases. You can't eat your cake and have it too. Which is to say, you can't have the benefits of an equality-based relationship and also the benefits of a traditional patriarchal relationship. That's just seeing your partner as a benefits machine. To be clear, I'd much prefer the latter, but if she wants equality and feminism ideals in a relationship, she needs to take responsibility that it comes with too. The above is 100% exploitation, emotional and psychological mistreatment, in my opinion, using a man for their money. Story 28. Attitude is everything. I've dated way too many narcissist women who act like they should be cherished while they do whatever they want. To include cheating and controlling people, emotionally cruel, and otherwise acting like their actions don't affect people. I've dated at least 5 different women in my life who would do really emotional damaging stuff like come up to me and say, "We're breaking up. I don't want to date you anymore." Then 2 days later, they come back and say, "I changed my mind. I still love you," but then refuse to apologize. God, just remembering that I used to put up with that makes me sick. We all know the signs. One common example is they get completely trashed and behave poorly, then act like we should all just endure that while protecting her. Screw that. I want to date an adult, not a spoiled, overgrown child. Another common example is where they act like they're a gift to me just because they're pretty and do literally nothing else. Like quality time, physical touch, chores, spells, treat me like a human being, etc. Another common example is where their profile is nothing but a checklist and complaints about men. Holy cow, you couldn't make me run away faster. Story 29. For me, it's all about empathy. I recently lost a long-time relationship because it just wasn't a fit. I tried way too hard for many years for my kid, sacrificing myself, but if you end up always defending yourself no matter how hard you try, then at some point, you'll hopefully realize it's not you, it's her. Took some help. Screw being empathetic. When she was sick, I took my role and held the fort for years. When I got sick and all empathy was gone, if you feel you're always defending yourself, and you feel it is not justified at all, that is when you should take a hard look at yourself and your situation. Maybe it is you, but maybe it is not you. But it is all unfair judgment and it's destroying you fighting to be heard. If you need to expand all your energy to be felt appreciated, they really ain't worth it and you should move on. Trust me. Story 30. We can argue, and that's fine, but when other stuff gets brought in that doesn't relate or like you're mad so we can't have fun the rest of the night or until I change, you're withholding intimacy. Any of that is a deal breaker. Maybe it's different between guys, but I'll tell my best friend, "Screw you," and he's like, "You got a problem with me?" And then in the same breath, "So where do you want to go to lunch?" Oh yeah, there's a sweet spot I've been meaning to try. That's a good, healthy way to be. You can have your conflicts, not agree, and as long as you're both being fair and honest with yourself, and your emotions and your consideration of the other and their emotions without being manipulative or withholding other parts of you, that's where it breaks down for me. If it's not happening, I want all of you and you get all of me. I'm not going to be in another 5 years of silence and ever feeling like I'm getting the truth, and always feeling like I need to tiptoe around my words. That is the biggest awful life I've ever experienced. The out there way is hard, but it's better. The hideaway is hard and it's worse. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.